At present, 96% of the world's approximately 6,700 languages are spoken by only 3% of the world's population. Although indigenous peoples make up less than 6% of the global population, they speak more than 4,000 of the world's languages. Conservative estimates suggest that more than half of the world's languages will become extinct by 2100. Other calculations predict that up to 95% of the world's languages may become extinct or seriously endangered by the end of this century. It is estimated that one indigenous language dies every 2 weeks. The majority of the languages that are under threat are indigenous languages. There were once over 300 Native American languages spoken across what is now the United States. However, many of these languages have declined over the past 2 centuries due to federal policies which sought to suppress indigenous cultures. During the boarding school era, Native children were taken from their families and punished for speaking their languages. Earlier government acts promoted forced assimilation, banned Native languages in schools and public life, erasing generations of speakers. Language is far more than a means of communication. It is the vessel that carries culture, ceremony, and collective memory. Through words, songs, and stories, Native nations pass down their worldview, values, and connections to the land. When a language is lost, an entire way of understanding the world fades with it. In the U.S. today, there are 35 tribal colleges and universities on a total of 90 campuses in Native communities, reservations, and urban cities with large Native populations. One of the 35 tribal colleges is Chief Dull Knife College, located in southeastern Montana on the Northern Cheyenne Reservation. Founded in 1979, they serve the needs of tribal members in pursuit of higher education. Today, we have the great privilege of hearing from Burt Medicine Bull, their professor of Cheyenne language and Cheyenne oral teachings. Professor Medicine Bull earned his master's degree in education at Montana State University and has been teaching since 1991. Since 1991, he has been committed to preserving his people's language, culture, and history. In addition to his formal education, he is an expert in his tribal language, which is actually his first language and the language he was raised with. It is my great pleasure to introduce him to you today. Well, I'm really excited to be here with a person who I have just a whole lot of respect for, a good friend of mine and a mentor and somebody who I really admire. Burt, sitovac, pevin sitovost,
Pevin sitovost.
Nepevevoms.
Napotn
Peva, neton shevet na dosa na hista.
Pevin sitovost. Sitovost na sheve. Na hista overman, huh? Na sutta. My Cheyenne name is Pierce Sitovost. And my English name, I would say BIA name, is Burt Medicine Bull. I'm from the Scabbaroo band from a little place called Bernie, right along the Ton River on the southern end of the reservation, Northern Cheyenne Reservation.
Oh, Nyaish Sitowat. Thank you, Burt. I appreciate that. So to get into the topic about language preservation, a lot of indigenous groups around the world struggle with how they can preserve their languages. The English language has become so prevalent with social media, texting, and all of these things that really, in most places in the world, there's this fear of the loss of language, the loss of culture, and yet we see a lot of groups of people who are doing an awful lot to preserve language. For example, in Hawaii, the Hawaiian people are doing a lot of good things to preserve their language. The Maori in New Zealand, who are hosting this event that we're presenting at, also do a lot of things to preserve their language. But I know this is something that's especially important to you personally. If you would talk about that, talk about your how this became to be such an important issue for you, and some of the efforts that you're involved in to help to preserve your Sutta Natitistas language.
Yeah. Well, I'll start off by saying I started out as an elementary teacher, and then I taught middle school. And then when the new high school came into being here at Lame Deer High School in 1994, I became the Cheyenne language instructor at the high school, as well as the brand new AD. It was a brand new school. And that's why I started with the language. I got into the classroom and I told the students that I was going to teach Cheyenne language, and I said, we're going to start with how to say good morning. So I was teaching them how to say it. And I even wrote it on the board. And then I said, all right, it's your turn. I'll say it, you repeat it. And I said, silence. And I had to backpedal fast because these students had not been introduced to the Cheyenne language in their homes. And as I look around in the classroom, there was very few students who had Cheyenne speaking parents. Maybe one parent was a Cheyenne speaker. And right away, I had to come up with something to make them proud of who they are and to learn the language. So I told them the story of our trek from Oklahoma to Montana in the middle of the winter, 30, 40 below, and just wearing moccasins and threadbare blankets and going against the whole United States Army. And they kept eluding them because of, quote, our traditional ways or ceremonial ways. And so I told them that a lot of the tribal members at that time, and it wasn't just warriors, but it was babies, it was little girls, little boys, young men, young women, men and women, and the elderly. They each gave their life so that we could be here, right here on this reservation. And while they were doing that, they were also praying. The elderly would pray with their pipes, and they would ask for something that would help us. So I said, because of their prayer, you guys are sitting in this classroom, and I'm teaching the Cheyenne language to you. And this is where we're going to start. I had to build up some kind of a self-identity. They didn't have that. So I had to build that up for them. And I had to build them up to where they were proud to learn the language. From there, I started learning how to use the sports figures in the school. At that time, we had a pretty good basketball program, and some of the players were like 6'4", 6'6", you know. So I went over there and I told them, I said, hey, I need you guys' help. And they said, how are we going to help you? We're not fluent speakers. I said, I want you to be a role model that you want to learn the language. And that's how I started with this teaching of language in the high school, and with the help of those sports figures, the athletes. And they helped me, and I would call on them. All right, I call their name and say, how do you say good morning? And they'd repeat it. You know. And that started a kind of a wave of wanting to learn the language there in the high school.
Sitowats, when I first started coming up to your reservation back in the 90s, it seemed like pretty much everybody who was in their 40s or their 50s and older used the language. You heard it all the time. Anywhere you went, you heard people as their language of choice using the Sitthat language. And I know that you have shared with me and others about how devastating COVID was for the number of fluent language speakers on the reservation. I think you said there's something like 300 or less fluent speakers.
Well, it started when they were forcing the people to learn the English language. It didn't just happen when the COVID came. It was way back when this reservation was established, and then they force fed our people the English language. But this COVID had a lot to do with us losing a lot of fluent speakers. And that made me want to work harder to try to save our language. And I say reclaim our language, because the students that I teach now and the students that are in the school systems, when I was teaching, I became a teacher in 1991. I first taught at St. Lebre as a fourth grade teacher. And that's how long I've been in education. And so I was given the teaching job of being the language teacher. So that's where it started. And I was looking at a lot of those students, their parents, a lot of them did not pass on this language to them. And so a lot of those students, they had some idea of what culture was and what ceremonies were, but they didn't know a bit of language at all. And back in the day, it was kind of teaching like colors and numbers, animals. Today we call it CNA, colors, numbers, and animals. And so my theme on saving the language, I guess, or reclaiming it, is that doing everything we can to help these students here on campus. Plus, we started a summer language program. It's going to be the third year coming back. I think they finally got some funding for it for this summer. And I think they're going to have the students go camp over at our camp area, Crazy Head Springs, for 4 days. But I told them you gotta teach language like an immersion style of class. You gotta talk Cheyenne all the way through, no English. And that's what I did. 3 years ago I was the camp director for the language class. They used to call it the immersion camp, but I changed it to language class.
Mhm.
And so that's continuing on. Last couple of years ago and this past summer, and then now that we have funding for this summer coming up, they'll do a language camp.
Can you explain a little bit more about what that is? I know that, like you said, for 4 years now, you guys have been doing that up there where you have the camps in the
Yeah,
summer.
it's
And
it's it's teaching them all different types of language. For instance, we're doing how to create like a drum, hand drum. So you use all the words for the hand drum, the drumstick, and how to do the drumstick and all that. So you use those words. You use the words for doing what I call beating, like a fan, powwow fan or something. And there's words for that. And there's words for going to swim. So, well, I was taking swimming there. There's words for that. So it's introducing them to all the jargon of each, I would call it subject area. Each area of focus, like swimming and eating and creating things. And then we have a drum group come out and they teach them how to sing the flag song. We'll sing the flag song in the morning. Then, well, we'll say a prayer in the morning, and we teach them just a real short prayer in Cheyenne. And then each morning and each time they eat, we have a student say a prayer. And then in the morning, we'll say a prayer, and then after the prayer, we'll do a flag song. That's what we do. Even though there's some bad history of the Cheyenne people being killed by the United States government, we still have people that joined the military, all four branches of it. And you know, we're such generous people. We're forgiving people. We forgave them for what they did to us. And our young people went into the service. During the Vietnam War, the North Cheyenne tribe had the most natives in service at the Vietnam War. Yeah. So that's why we teach them the flag song, to be proud of the veterans, and the people that are still in service. I have a granddaughter that went into the Navy. Right now she's stationed in Hawaii. Yeah. So we have things like that to teach the students. But we always focus on them. You, them, to be proud of who they are, to be proud of their Cheyenne name. We teach them how to say their Cheyenne name. Yeah, a lot of them have Cheyenne names. Some of them don't, so we ask them to pick a name. We got a list of names, and they'll pick the name. So that's what we do during the language camp, teaching them language. We adapt to like red light, green light. We teach that in Cheyenne. We teach the game. Simon says, instead of I would say, Sitawat says, Sitawat, we teach that, and they're hearing language. India, stop, India. Immense walk, you have to really listen and pick up the language to do the game, and they do. Those little students are really sharp sponges, man. They can pick up the language. If I retire, I'm going to start working on an immersion school.
Well, that's worked in other places. Like I was saying, in Hawaii, for example, I know that they have some total immersion schools where they just speak their language. And also, I've seen in some of the Lakota reservations, like Pine Ridge, for example, where they try to implement total language immersion schools. And in other places as well, that has been successful when people have been able to do that. And I know you've said that that's a dream of yours for quite some time, that you'd like to do that. If I could, I'd like to circle back to something you said earlier. You talked about the importance when you're teaching language, especially to the younger kids from the reservation there, about language and identity. And you said, be proud of who you are. I know you said to me before that there were some times where kids would come in to your class and they didn't want to try to speak the language because maybe they felt ashamed because they felt embarrassed that they didn't know any phrases like, "pebebuna" or, the "nipibimota" or any of these common phrases. And you were talking about trying to give them some pride and making them feel good about themselves. Can you talk a little bit more about the link or the the direct correlation between language and your identity as a native person.
Well, I know these students and I know their families. And so I tell them that when I say that you've got to be proud to be a Cheyenne speaker. And so I back up and I say, I know that today is the first day you're going to learn language. You've never heard language before. So I asked them kind of a survey, where do you hear language mostly? And some of them will say, most of them will say powwow. They hear the language at the powwow. I said, where else? Oh, I overhear them talking at the Cheyenne Depot or at the store or at the clinic. And what does it make you feel? And they said, I feel like I'm left out. I don't understand what they're talking about, so I feel like I'm all left out. Another one said, oh, when they start talking Cheyenne, I just turn them off, she said. And so I said, all right, well, let's start with your name. How many of you know have Cheyenne name? Well, they raised their hands. A couple of them, I don't have one, you know. And I give them a list of names. I pick a name that's easy to pronounce. So that's what we do. That's how I do it. And then I guess I role model the Cheyenne, being proud of who you are. And I tell them, sit the boss, Nashivit. Piers is my name. Over Matanasta. I come from the Scabby Rope band. Scabby Rope district over the mountain by the river. And I tell them that our language is the same language that the Great Spirit Maya talks. So when you say prayer, the Creator will hear you because you're talking Cheyenne, because that's the language he talks. It's a sacred language. And whatever you say, you got to be careful of how you say it. If you're saying something negative, those things come about, but it comes back. And it comes back to you. And I said, you ever hear of karma? They all say, yeah. And I said, that's the same thing. If you say something negative, it comes back to you tenfold. If you say something positive, it's the same thing. It comes back to you tenfold, but it's all positive. So rather than saying something negative, say something positive, you know, that way you can feel good about it because you're hearing it. People come to you and say something tenfold, I said. And so I know that this is your first time, first day of class, and some of you don't know how to pronounce, you don't know how to enunciate. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce these sounds to you, sounds of the Siddha language. And they're all written down. I go through them. Our language, most of it, there's 3 beginnings on our language. Na, which means I. You start your phrases with na. Na peva mohta, I'm feeling good. Or you're feeling good. Ne, you're feeling good. He, she, them. Peva mohta, they're feeling good. Peva mohta, he, she is feeling good. You know, I say those things to them. And pretty soon they started catching on. And I'll tell you, after 4 weeks and I'm teaching the language, well, I'm a people watcher too. So I watch them on the first day they come in, they're stoic. Some of them kind of mean. And the only reason they're doing that is they don't want me to know that they can't speak Cheyenne or they don't know Cheyenne and stuff. I teach them their names first. And pretty soon they're saying their names. And that's where that identity starts to build. You can see it. They're starting to say their name and they're starting to say it with pride. let's say I'm learning how to say sit the ball. Sit the ball. I didn't know how to say it before. And pretty soon I'm learning it because the instructor keeps calling my name during the morning roll call. Because that's what I do. I call them morning roll. Even though it's college, they want us to keep attendance. So I call them their names, Cheyenne names. So if they call my name, sit the ball. I say it real proud because I know my name now. And that's what I see. And just to get back about the fourth or fifth week, I can see a big difference when they come walking in. They come in and walking in with pride because they know some Cheyenne language. The number one thing is they know their name in Cheyenne. And when I call their names, they're so proud to now. No, I'm here.
Naho.
Yeah.
Naho.
And that's a start, of that. And I've been doing that for the last 15 years. And I've worked with over 500 students.
Yeah, I took your class the 2 semesters during COVID when it was online virtual. And you used to say, I know you probably still do say, but you used to say to us in class, you would say that Sutpa language was a healing language, that
Yeah.
it was a healing language. I think that's tied into identity too.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's a same language as the creator. And it was when we were underground, our language was born in there too. The Sutpa language. It's earth-born language, and so are we, earth-born people. We come from Mother Earth, so does our language come from Mother Earth. And so my grandpa would always say that this language, when you listen to it, will heal you. It'll heal you. It'll make you proud of who you are. And it really does. You sing some songs and put some Cheyenne words in there. It really does a miraculous job of healing people. It makes people come to use their emotions. A lot of people don't, some I see some of these young men, they don't hug. They don't say, I love you, things like that. But that's just how they were raised. But my grandparents, they were different. And they told me, you got to exercise these emotions that the Greek spirit Maya gave us. But you've got to balance them. Your spirituality, your emotions, is physical. And so when you think about all that, and you hear a person, they say, I'm going to say a prayer, and they start praying, you listen to them. Just listening to them praying gives you healing. Heals whatever you're going through, you're following that person's prayer. Maybe they're praying for somebody that was sick, want you to make them well. Or they're giving thanks because I want to thank you for blessing this person. They're healthy now today, Things like that. And you go, it's like I would say, painting a scenario with language as you're listening to this prayer. Or you're listening to somebody talking. They're like painting a picture, a positive, beautiful picture, I say it. That's how our language is.
Earlier in part of your introduction, you were talking about the river, the Tongue River and the Powder River, and then over the mountains to Burnie. It's interesting because one of our Maori people were telling me earlier that who's one of the organizers of this conference was telling me that when they introduce themselves in their language, one of the things they do is they say what tribe or band they come from, and what mountain they're affiliated with, and what body of water they're affiliated with. And you did that also in what you were talking about. And all of those things are directly related to identity as well.
I always mention that I grew up along the Tongue River, and my grandparents said that water is alive. It seems to me that the water that comes out of the faucet isn't alive. That's what I saw when they were telling me that.
Mm.
Yeah, the water that comes from the faucet is directed into a container, and that container just sits there. And then they turn on the faucet. It's not as powerful as the one you see at the river, they said. That river, you can see it flowing. You go over there and you get some of it in a container and you drink that. That water is life-giving. Water of life, we call it. Amintanenima. But then we went further because my grandpa's a shaman, and he would say, sacred water, mahayunima. That's what he would call it. So that's how I know the water is sacred and it's life-giving. Amitanenima, life-giving water. Mahayunima, sacred water. And we used to go there, and my grandmother would instruct me. When I was getting ready to go swimming, she would say, don't run in there, or don't jump in there. You go in there and you wade in there and you say a prayer and you wet yourself and you thank the water for letting you come in to have fun. And after you do that, then you can splash all you want and holler all around, loud as you want, she would say. And that's what I always did, you know. And so, and then the land is alive. It's alive. The trees, they're alive. The trees give oxygen. So does the plants. But they also use oxygen just like we do, the sacred breath. And we use the sacred light from the sunlight. We call that the sacred light. Mahayana, that's what we call it. And these are the teachings from my grandparents. And always be thankful for that. This life-giving breath. All these animals, all these plants, all these insects, they all use the air. And so when you pray for those insects, animals, plants, trees, brush, because they breathe the same air you do. And so that's the teachings of my grandparents. And then they would tell me, oh, the Gabby Root, man, that's where you're from. And then Hotoa Mahaya, the Medicine Bull family, that's where you're from. The Toa Mahaya families. My grandpa, Willis Medicine Bull. My grandmother was Annie Medicine Bull. They have Cheyenne names, you know. My grandpa's name was Whistling Eagle. I've heard some people interpret the word for Whistling Eagle. They call it Screeching Eagle. I've never heard of an eagle screeching. I mean, you should hear an eagle song sitting on a tree there. It's like a little flute, you know. Beautiful. That's all I've ever heard.
What advice do you have for other cultures, including those who will be at this conference, who are going to be watching this, about how they can preserve their languages? Some advice, some tips, and some encouragement, perhaps, on how other people who are facing the same problems. So a lot of problems with loss of language in tribal communities. What advice do you have for them, and encouragement, I guess, to continue to try to preserve native languages?
Well, first of all, you've got to make the students or whoever you're teaching the language to, that they're You got to build them up to be proud of who they are so that they can learn the language. Once you start, and then you go and you got to be patient. Patience is the number one thing. And then you don't laugh at them. They're making mistakes, you don't laugh at them. You just go back and you teach the same phrase over and over, and that becomes in their language receptor. It sticks in there. Once it sticks in there, then it goes to the heart. Once it sticks into the heart and mind, then you've internalized the language. And that's where they start learning the language. So repetition is a must. And don't go fast. You got to go slow at it. Because it's the first time they're learning language. They got to absorb it. Physically, mentally, all that. Spiritually, emotionally. They have to absorb that, which is called internalizing the language. And so you have to be patient. Like, for instance, I'll use our language because that's what I know. Like, for instance, good morning. You've got to break it down into syllables. There's 4 syllables right there. And you write it all out. And I don't expect them to learn how to write. I just want them to learn to memorize, to internalize the language. That's my number one thing. So that's what you got to do, repetition. And then you continue on. What you've learned, let's say, I'll use me. Let's say I taught Cheyenne language here, and I've done it for 16 weeks. And then I move on to the next level. I teach it for another 16 weeks, Cheyenne language 2. And when I do Cheyenne language 2, I'll put in some of the words that were in Cheyenne 1, and I'll put them in there. And I want to see if they recognize them. And I'll go through them, and sure enough, one of the students said, "Hey, this was in Cheyenne language 1." And I said, "Yeah, you know what that is? You know what you just did? It's called ripples of recognition. You've got to make them feel confident because they recognized it." That's how I would recommend to the teachers when they teach language. Yeah. Don't require them to write the language. That'll turn them off. But you can use recorders. Every student has a phone that has a recorder on there. You can record your phrases that you want them to learn. And they can learn on their own listening to that, plus your notes. And then when they come to class, I always go back from 1 through however many phrases you got. And I always say those things. And then the next thing I do is called code switching. I say it in English, they say it in Sutta. If I say it in Sutta, they say it in English. That's building their translation quick. Language people, they say, we're building a program where they can switch from language, English to language to English. And so that's what I do. It's called code switching. I use a lot of that too. And that forces the brain to listen to both the English and the Cheyenne language and practice that too. So, and then at the end of maybe 4 weeks, and you've got a list of words, then you do an oral quiz. You say the word in English and they say in your language. in this case, Cheyenne language. Good morning. Pivot good to see you in the pivot. And you kind of mark down what they missed. Most of my students, because they practice, and I practice with them, and they practice at home on themselves. When they come and do their first quiz, easy. Yeah. Oh, you guys have done that.
Yeah. I remember very well.
Yeah.
I remember being all nervous.
Yeah.
That's
And
fun.
they get that way too.
Yeah.
They doubt themselves because it's a brand new language that they're being tested on.
Yeah. Well, piva nea ish nea makia ish of
All right, you said share a song, huh? We
piva
had a song.
if you would, yeah.
It's called the Wolf Song. The wolf brought it to our people. I'll tell you the story real quick. The warriors were out. I don't know if they were out hunting or if they were out hunting horses or what. But as they were out there, they were real quiet and they're observant. You had to be to survive. And way out, they heard somebody singing. They also did sign language. Just walk up there. So they all went up there and they came up to this hillside and they looked over the hill. Down at the bottom of the hill was an old wolf. And he was facing east, facing the sun. And he was singing a song. And in them words, no carpet, nothing. I have vast knowledge of the sacred mountain. No carpet, nothing. The ways of the sacred mountain. Those are the words that are in this song. So that's what I'm going to sing. And we sing this song either at the gatherings. It's not really a ceremonial song, but it's a family song, I call it, to, I guess, celebrate harmony, good health, happiness, family life. And sing it at home. Sometimes I sing it at gathering. Even though we're from different tribes, we're all family. We're all connected from Mother Earth. We all come from Mother Earth. We're all connected. It doesn't matter what nationality you come from. That's where we all come from. So I'll sing it. It's called the Wolf Song. Yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey. Yeah, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey. Yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yeah, yo, hey, yo, hey. Yeah, hey, yeah, yo, hey, yo, hey. Yeah, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey. Yeah, hey, yeah, yo, hey, yo, hey. Yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yo, hey. No kape na hene na zehetaneo maheyono. Yo, hey, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey. Yeah, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey. Yeah, hey, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey. Yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo. Yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey. Yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey. Yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yeah, yo, hey, yo, hey. Ya hey hey yo hey yo hey. Ya hey yo hey yo hey. Ya hey yo hey yo hey. Ya hey ya hey yo hey yo hey yo. No kape na hene e na te he taneo mahe o no. Ya he ye yo he yo he. Ya he yo he yo he. Ya he ye yo he yo he. Ya he ye ya he yo he yo he. Nahan.
Oh, Nia Esh, Nia Makia Esh.
Mhm.
Naha Tama. I remember that from your class.
Yeah.
Naha Tama. Well, thank you for being with us today and for your words on language and cultural preservation. And I know that all the people who will be seeing this will appreciate, just as I do, every time you share
Yeah.
about your work, your language
Yeah.
preservation and culture. And so, Mahel Sin Shivakta Mav and
Yeah.
Stahosevom.
All right.
All
Thoughts
right.
more.
Stahosevom. Thank you again. I'll talk to you
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah.